So Shabbat Shalom, am I on? Oh. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for the opportunity to share. I feel like I'm big, highly exalted up here, but it is a nice podium. Right. But it is a nice podium. I'm kind of happy to have this back. So, okay, I'll just do the thing. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. So, I have to confess, this week was a little different for me because I didn't realize until Thursday that I needed to teach this Shabbat. Oops. So rather than preparing to talk about the Parsha and other thoughts, I chose rather to talk about what I've been reading. So I apologize for not being on the Parsha, but this will be almost just as good. What I'm going to do is teach 1 Samuel. And actually it's like kind of about the first half of the book of 1 Samuel. And when I originally started typing this up, I was like kind of harried and like, I got to get this thing going. And I kind of went back to the beginning. And what I was trying to get to was like David and Saul and David, and watch that kind of happen. Well, I never quite really got there, so it's going to be all the stuff leading up to Saul and David, but we'll talk about them a little bit. But a lot of it's really about Samuel, and I love that man. So we'll do Samuel today. So that's the book of 1 Samuel. I hadn't been reading in the Hebrew Tanakh for quite a while. I had finished the Tanakh, and then I'd kind of gone on to just reading things in English. So I hadn't done the Hebrew in quite a while, and we hadn't been doing the Hebrew classes either. So I was getting rusty. So then a few months ago, I started out in Joshua, because I've read the Torah a whole bunch, and so I thought, okay, I'm going to start in Joshua again and go forward from there. So, and now I'm in 1 Samuel. So I did Joshua, Judges, now I'm in 1 Samuel. At first, it was taxing on my brain to try to come back and remember all this Hebrew vocabulary. I was rusty. But now it's all coming back to me more and more. So, but I will say that reading the Bible in Hebrew, it's quite rewarding and rich. I see a whole lot more than when I read it in English. And I will also say that in my earlier days, 30 whatever years ago, or 20, 30, 40 whatever years ago, I always thought, wouldn't it be amazing to be able to understand the Hebrew? I never thought in a million years that I would understand Hebrew. And here I am able to read this stuff in Hebrew, and I may not be the best expert, but I'm perceiving, right? So, and I have to still kind of look over to the English for several different words to see what they are, but more and more I can just kind of read and I understand most of the words. I don't understand all the nuances because in Hebrew there's about 1,000 things you have to know, and I don't know everything, but it still works though. You can find the root words, you can understand how they work. It's pretty great. So, but in 1 Samuel, we open with the story of Samuel's birth. Samuel was the son of a woman, Hannah, who couldn't have any children. Her husband Elkanah had 2 wives. The first one, Peninnah, had plenty of kids, but not Hannah. So Hannah prayed one time when their family went up to Shiloh in their yearly trip to the house of Yahweh. And so we'll read right now from 1 Samuel 1, starting in verse 4. When the day came that Elkanah sacrificed, they were there, they had gone to the feast in Jerusalem, in Shiloh, which is where they were meeting at the time. He gave to Peninnah, his wife, and to all her sons and her daughters, he gave them all portions, right? But to Hannah, he gave a double portion, for he loved Hannah. But Yahweh had shut up her womb. So, year by year, when she went up to the house of Yahweh, her rival, that's Peninnah, provoked her. Therefore she wept, and she did not eat. Peninnah could be really mean. Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? Why is your heart grieved? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? Well, maybe, but maybe not. So Hannah rose up, verse 9, after they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh. Now Eli the Kohen was sitting on his seat by the doorpost of the temple of Yahweh. She was weeping bitterly. She vowed a vow and said, Yahweh Tsevaot, if you will indeed look at the affliction of your servant and remember me and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a boy, then I will give him to Yahweh all the days of his life, and no razor shall come upon his head. Which means she's setting him on the path of a Nazirite vow from inside the womb. I bet she didn't drink any grape juice either. I bet she didn't. Verse 12. It was, as she continued praying before Yahweh, that Eli saw her mouth. Now Hannah spoke in her heart. Only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. So Eli thought she was drunk. And Eli said to her, How long will you be drunk? Get rid of your wine. Hannah answered, No, my lord, I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have not been drinking wine or strong drink, but I poured out my soul before Yahweh. Do not consider your servant a wicked woman, for I have been speaking out of the abundance of my complaint and my provocation. Verse 17, Then Eli answered, Go in shalom, and may the God of Israel grant your petition that you have asked of him. And she said, Let your servant find favor in your sight. So the woman went her way and ate, and her face was no longer downcast. They rose up early in the morning and worshipped Yahweh, then returned and came to their house in Ramah. Then Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and Yahweh remembered her. And it came to pass, when the time had come, that Hannah conceived and bore a son, and she named him Samuel, saying, Because I have asked him of Yahweh. So El is the end of Samuel, that's God, and the asking part is obviously the Sam part. I've asked of God. Samuel, I've asked him of God. So Hannah raised her son Samuel until he was weaned. After that she followed through on her vow, and brought him to the house of Yahweh in Shiloh. This is when she prayed her famous prayer, the one we sang today. Too fast today, I will say. So that was my fault. I got it really going. But so, Song of Hannah, and it's a lovely song, and that's her prayer. And the Song of Hannah. The first line is, My heart exalts in Yahweh, my horn is exalted in Adonai. So this is because, she had the baby. Hallelujah. So now Samuel lives with Eli the Kohen. He's a little boy. He's been brought in. He's weaned, and he's living there in the house of God in Shiloh. Eli has two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, and they are doing things that are evil and displeasing to God. They're not good sons, okay? And we're not going to go into that story, but just keep in mind that there are two Phinehas's in the Bible. The first one is the one who slew the couple in the tent. You remember him? He's fantastic. Pinchas. He's the good one. This is the bad one. And his brother is Hophni. And this is in Samuel here, this one. Now, in 1 Samuel chapter 2, in verse 12, it says, Now the sons of Eli were wicked men. They did not know Yahweh. Now, where it says they were wicked men, in the Hebrew, what it actually says is they were sons of Belial. That's not a good thing. Belial is, I don't know quite what, but it's either a false god or something. And whenever somebody's really wicked, they call him a son of Belial and throughout the Tanakh. So this is they're bad. They don't belong to God at all. They belong to the enemy. In my understanding, they belong to the enemy. And at the same time, they're Kohanim. So they're corrupting they're throwing a fork, they're messing up the offerings, okay? And bad. So these two, they're Kohanim, but let's go to where God is calling Samuel, though. In chapter 3, 1 Samuel, verse 1, the child Samuel ministered to Yahweh before Eli, and the word of Yahweh was rare in those days. There were not many visions then. And it was at that time when Eli was laid down in his place, now his eyes had begun to grow dim, so that he could not see. And the lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel had laid down in the temple of Yahweh, where the ark of God was. Samuel's in there with the ark of God laying down. That Yahweh called Samuel and he said, here I am. So he got up and he ran to Eli and he said, here I am, for you called me. But Eli said, I did not call. Lie down again. So he went and lay down. Then Yahweh called yet again, Samuel. So Samuel arose and went to Eli and said, here I am, for you called me. He answered, I did not call, my son. Lie down again. Now Samuel did not yet know Yahweh, neither was the word of Yahweh yet revealed to him. Yahweh called Samuel again for the third time. He arose and went to Eli and said, here I am, for you called me. Eli perceived that Yahweh had called the child. He finally figured it out. Therefore Eli said to Samuel, go, lie down. It shall be, if he calls you, that you shall say, speak, Yahweh, for your servant hears. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. Then Yahweh came and stood and called as at other times, Samuel, Samuel. And Samuel said, speak, for your servant hears. Yahweh said to Samuel, behold, I will do a thing in Israel at which both the ears of everyone who hears it will tingle. On that day I will carry out against Eli all that I have spoken concerning his house, from the beginning even to the end. For I have told him that I will judge his house forever, for the iniquity which he knew, because his sons brought a curse on themselves, and he did not restrain them. So even though it was his sons that did it, he should have stepped in and said no. But he didn't. So there's a problem. So God continues, therefore I have sworn to the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be removed with sacrifice or offering forever. So Samuel lay down until the morning and opened the doors of the house of Yahweh, and Samuel feared to show Eli the vision. Then Eli called Samuel and said, Samuel, my son. He said, here I am. He said, what is the thing that he has spoken to you? Please do not hide it from me. God do so to you, and more also, if you hide anything from me of all the things that he spoke to you. So Samuel told him every bit, and hid nothing from him. He said, it is Yahweh. This is Eli talking. It is Yahweh. Let him do what seems good to him. So he knows this trouble is coming. So verse 19, Samuel grew, and Yahweh was with him, and he let none of his words fall to the ground. That's the only time it ever says that in the Bible that I know of, but I love that. Let none of his words fall to the ground. Verse 20, all Israel, from Dan even to Beersheba, knew that Samuel was established to be a prophet of Yahweh. And Yahweh appeared again in Shiloh, for Yahweh had revealed himself to Samuel in Shiloh by the word of Yahweh. So, it seemed to me reading it this time that 1 Samuel is actually very much an extension or a continuation of the book of Judges. The first part of the book is very much like the book of Judges. And especially the first third of the book, where basically the prophet Samuel is the final judge of Israel. That's basically what it is. Before he announced Saul to be king. So Israel continues to have issues with the Philistines. They're their neighbors right there. They're a constant problem, especially when the people of Israel are not doing a very good job of staying tight with God. The worse they get, the worse the Philistines get. When they drift away, the Philistines cause them a lot of trouble. One of these times is when the Philistines actually capture the ark of God. You remember that? Well, we're going to read that too. This happens in the next chapter. So, 1 Samuel chapter 4. The word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out against the Philistines to battle and encamped beside Ebenezer, and the Philistines encamped in Aphek. The Philistines put themselves in array against Israel, and when they joined battle, Israel was defeated by the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men of the army in the field. That's not a good day for Israel. When the people had come into the camp, the elders of Israel said, "Why has Yahweh defeated us today before the Philistines? Let us get the ark of the covenant of Yahweh out of Shiloh and bring it to us, that it may come to among us and save us out of the hand of our enemies." Okay, not a good idea. And they're looking at it like it's some magic potion. You know, this is not what the ark of the covenant of God is. But this is the way they're looking at it. It's incorrect, but oh well. So, the people sent to Shiloh, and they brought from there the ark of the covenant of Yahweh Tsebaot, who sits above the cherubim. And the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there with the ark of the covenant of God. So they went along with this cockamamie plan, because they don't even belong to God as far as I can tell. So, when the ark of the covenant of Yahweh came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so that the earth rang again. When the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, "What does the noise of this great shout in the camp of the Hebrews mean?" When they understood that the ark of Yahweh had come into the camp. Oh, then they understood. The Philistines were afraid, for they said, "God has come into the camp." They said, "Woe to us! For there has not been such a thing before. Woe to us! Who shall deliver us out of the hand of these mighty gods?" This is how they're thinking. These are the gods that struck the Egyptians with all kinds of plagues in the wilderness. Be strong and behave like men, O you Philistines, that you not be servants of the Hebrews, as they have been to you. They have been their servants for a while. Strengthen yourselves and fight like men and fight. So the Philistines fought, and Israel was defeated, and each man fled to his tent. There was a very great slaughter, for 30,000 footmen of Israel fell. God. And the ark of God was taken, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were slain. Not a good day, okay? So here, it certainly appears that the judgment of God against the house of Eli is involved in this great slaughter and defeat, because Hophni and Phinehas die. And as Eli is told of the death of his sons and of the loss of the Ark of the Covenant, he falls off his seat, breaks his neck, and dies. That's what happened to Eli. So they all die on the same day. So the Philistines bring the Ark of God to Ashdod, which is, city in Gaza, and into the house of their god Dagon. So 1 Samuel chapter 5. When the people of Ashdod arose early on the next day, behold, Dagon had fallen on his face to the ground before the ark of Yahweh. So they put the ark in there. Next morning, he's like clunk over, So God really wasn't having it. He's making. I think this is like a joke of God. So anyway, at least to me it is. Not to them it wasn't. But they took Dagon and set him in that Dagon thing. They put it back up in his place again. But when they arose early on the following morning, behold, Dagon had fallen on his face to the ground before the ark of Yahweh, and the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hands were cut off on the threshold. Only Dagon's torso was intact. So this time he really broke. But the hand of Yahweh was heavy on the people of Ashdod, and he destroyed them and struck them with tumors, even Ashdod and its borders. So the people of Ashdod there's problems. They're getting sick, they're dying. It's awful. They say, get this thing out of here. So they send the ark to their neighbors in Gath. Gath is next door. It's like this is all there in Gaza along the coast, kind of like. And it caused problems there too. Confusion, more tumors. Oh, by the way, in the King James, the tumors are called emerods. Yeah. And I've heard them that this is hemorrhoids, but I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe not. Yeah, maybe. We don't know. Yeah, but anyway, this happens. So they send it to Gath. They send it to Ekron. Same things happen. People are dying. There's great trouble, great concern. Nobody wants this thing around anymore. So eventually, after 7 months, the Philistines decide it's not so good for them to have this ark in their midst. So they get together and decide what to do. In 1 Samuel chapter 6, why then do you harden your hearts, they're saying, as the Egyptians and Pharaoh hardened their hearts? When he had worked wonderfully among them, did they not let the people go and they departed? Now then, take and prepare yourselves a new cart. This is Philistines talking. And 2 milk cows on which there has come no yoke, and tie the cows to the cart, and bring their calves home from them, and take the ark of Yahweh and lay it on the cart. And so this is how they sent it back to Israel, to get it away from them. The cows wander over until they get to a place called Beth Shemesh. And there are people of Israel there out in the field reaping. So they see the cart, the cows, whatnot. They bring it in, and they break up the cart, offer sacrifices of the cows, and burn up the cart, and there you go. The Philistines had put in there a bunch of golden tumors or emerods, as well as a bunch of golden mice, to try and release the curses that were on them because of the ark being there. So that's what was found inside when they got it back. These were in there with the tablets of the 10 Devarim. So it also happened that many men of Israel, of Beth Shemesh, were struck and died because they looked into the ark. Yeah, like a lot. Like maybe, I don't remember, maybe 10,000. It was a lot. So anyway, that was in chapter 6. From there the ark went to Kiriath Jearim. Kiriath means like little town in Hebrew. So Kiriath Jearim is like little town of Jearim, you know. And that's where it went where things finally settled down. Eleazar, son of Abinadab, was consecrated to keep the ark, and it stayed there for 20 years. So there it was, out there in the Kiriath Jearim. That's where the ark of God was for 20 years. And this time, as I read the story of the new cart and the cows used to carry the cart, I remember how David got it wrong the first time he tried to move it. And remember the death of Uzzah when he put out his hand to try to steady the cart? And David learned his lesson after that, though. He must have studied or been taught that the ark is to be carried on staves by Levites. The first time, he didn't know that. The next time, he moves it into Jerusalem. He does it the right way. Not only that, but in 1 Chronicles, in the same section, we learn of a whole bunch of new things that David is instituting, including worshiping with music, with instruments, but that's another story. And it struck me that perhaps the reason he does the new cart is because that's the way the Philistines did it. He might have been copying them. And when they sent it away from him. And for David, that's fairly recent history. It's 20 years ago. So they knew what happened. So, by the way, when David goes and gets the ark, it's still in the same place. That's where he gets it from, Kiriath Jearim. So that goes there. David comes back later and gets it, but that's where it was for 20 years. And the one that came and got it was David. So now we go back to Samuel in chapter 9. Now, there was a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish. You know where we're going now? The son of Kish is Saul, but we'll get there. There was a man of Benjamin whose name was Kish, the son of Abiel, the son of Zeror, the son of Bechorath, the son of Aphiah, the son of a Benjamite, a mighty man of valor. And he had a son whose name was Saul, Shaul, an impressive young man, And there was not among the sons of Israel a better person than he. From his shoulders and upward, he was taller than any of the people. He was fantastic. Basketball player or whatever. So, right? So, Shaul is physically impressive. He's taller than everybody. In here, there's a story about Saul. In this section, we have a story of Saul looking for his father's lost donkeys. They lose a bunch of donkeys. He goes out looking for them. As he is searching, he decides to stop in and inquire of the prophet Samuel to see if Samuel can help find the donkeys. Now, in verse 15, chapter 9. Now Yahweh had revealed to Samuel a day before Saul came, saying, tomorrow, about this time, I will send you a man out of the land of Benjamin, and you shall anoint him to be prince over my people Israel. He will save my people out of the hand of the Philistines, for I have looked upon my people, because their cry has come to me. So Samuel anoints Saul. And as he does so, he tells Saul of detail after detail of what he is about to encounter as he goes on the road leaving Samuel. So, 1 Samuel chapter 10, verse 9. And it was so, when Saul had turned his back to go from Samuel, that God gave him another heart. And all those signs happened that day, the things that Samuel had told him that would happen. When they came to the hill there, behold, a band of prophets met him, and the Ruach Elohim came mightily upon him. This is Shaul. And he prophesied among them. And it was that when all who knew him before saw that he prophesied with the prophets, then the people said to one another, what is this that has come to the son of Kish? Is Saul also among the prophets? Verse 17, Samuel called the people together to Yahweh to Mizpah, and he said to the sons of Israel, Samuel called him. Yahweh, the God of Israel, says, I brought Israel up out of Egypt, and I delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all the kingdoms that oppressed you. But you have today rejected your God, who himself saves you out of all your calamities and your distresses. As you have said to him, no, set a king over us. Now therefore, present yourselves before Yahweh by your tribes and by your thousands. So they bring all the tribes, all the thousands, and and eventually Saul is chosen. And perhaps casting lots, I don't really know how they did it, but they brought everybody, and they chose them batch by batch by batch and narrowed it down until it was Saul that was chosen. But Samuel already knew, right? So he knew who it was going to be. They find Saul hiding among the baggage. I just don't, okay. Anyway, they anointed him to be king over Israel that day. Chapter 12 of 1 Samuel is really quite something. It is an indictment and a warning to the people of Israel from God and from the lips of Samuel, because they have rejected God in their desire to have a king. It's a great chapter, but I'm not going to read it because it's just so much. But I love the man Samuel. He is terrific. He is just so faithful to God to do and to say all the right things. As we read earlier, he did not let any of the words of God fall to the ground. He followed through. He spoke them and he did them. That is an example to us. We should be like Samuel. We should follow through on the things that God has entrusted to us. Every one of us is different. Everybody's not the same. It's not always easy knowing and understanding exactly what the word of the Lord is to us, especially when it's by revelation of the Spirit. That's not always easy. But with time spent walking by the Spirit, we will be more and more sure of when we are truly hearing words from above. We'll also be more and more sure of when we're not. When we do hear, it is now up to us. We are the ones who need to follow through. We are the ones who need to be obedient to the heavenly vision. Sometimes it's not instruction for us that we hear, but just healing or help from above. But sometimes it's understanding, knowledge, or wisdom that we need to take into account and to act on. Don't let the words of God fall to the ground. The same is true with the revealed Word of God that we read, the Bible. There are commandments, truths, instructions that we need to heed more and more in our daily lives. Again, don't let the Word of God fall to the ground. It's up to each of us. We carry it. That's the lesson from Samuel. So from here I'll just say that from the time that Saul became king, as I was reading this time, everything about him seemed a little off. He's hiding the baggage, for crying out loud. There's a lot of things like that. And and the weird thing is that we read, God gave him a new heart. So he had every opportunity. And anyway, something was wrong. Well, I know how the story turns out. I guess probably most people here know how the story turns out. I know he ends up being rejected as king. But this time I saw clues along the way. Pretty much every step along the way you could see he was kind of messing up. But where he really messed up was in the matter of Amalek. And that's what we're going to read now. Chapter 15, 1 Samuel. Samuel said to Saul, Yahweh sent me to anoint you to be king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore listen to the voice of the words of Yahweh. This is what Yahweh Sebaot says. I remember what Amalek did to Israel, how he set himself against him on the way when he came up out of Egypt. Now go and strike Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have, and do not spare them. Kill both man and woman, infant, nursing baby, ox, sheep, camel, donkey, everything. This is the word of the Lord to Saul. So Saul takes the army and goes. And verse 7, Saul struck the Amalekites from Havilah as you go to Shur, that is before Egypt, all down south and all that. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep, of the cattle, and of the fat calves and the lambs, and all that was good, and were not willing to utterly destroy them, but everything that was vile and refuse, well, they destroyed that utterly. Then the word of Yahweh came to Samuel, saying, It grieves me that I have set up Saul to be king, for he has turned back from following me, and has not carried out my commandments. And Samuel was angry, and he cried to Yahweh all night. That's what he says. This is the verse in the Bible. Samuel was angry, and he cried to Yahweh all night. Samuel arose early in the morning to meet Saul, and it was told Samuel, saying, Saul came to Carmel, and behold, he set up a monument for himself. Sets up a monument for himself? It's just cringeworthy, right? Okay, and then he turned and passed on and went down to Gilgal. So Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said to him, You are blessed by Yahweh. I have carried out the commandment of Yahweh. But Samuel said, Then what does this bleating of the sheep in my ears and the lowing of the cattle which I hear mean? What's all this? Saul said, Oh, well, they've brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and of the cattle to sacrifice to Yahweh your God. It's a really good reason. We have utterly destroyed the rest. Then Samuel said to Saul, Stay, and I will tell you what Yahweh said to me last night. We remember last night. Saul cried all night. And he said to him, Say on. And Samuel said, though you are little in your own sight, did you not become the head of the tribes of Israel? Yahweh appointed you king over Israel. And Yahweh sent you on a journey and said, go and utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and fight against them until they are consumed. Why then did you not obey the voice of Yahweh, but took the plunder and did that which was evil in the sight of Yahweh? Then Saul said to Samuel, but I have obeyed the voice of Yahweh, and I have gone the way which Yahweh sent me, and I brought Agag the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people, took of the plunder, sheep and cattle, and the chief of the devoted things to sacrifice to Yahweh, your God, in Gilgal. And Samuel said, has Yahweh as much delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of Yahweh? Oh my gosh, what a statement. Has Yahweh as much delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of Yahweh? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to listen than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. Oh my gosh. And stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. God. Because you have rejected the word of Yahweh, he has also rejected you from being king. Sorry. So that's the end of Saul. This is a hard thing. Saul is constantly making excuses. He's not owning up to his sin. He can't seem to even recognize it. It's a real problem. So compare this to when Nathan the prophet confronts David about his sin with Bathsheba and her husband Uriah. He took the woman he had the husband killed in the war, and after being confronted by the prophet, the prophet comes, spends time with David, and really gets him to understand that you have really sinned. Well, after being confronted, David says to Nathan, first things come out of his mouth, he says, I have sinned against Yahweh. That's what David says. Plain and simple. No trying to skate out from under it. Psalm 51 is all about the grief and repentance of David after this sin. David was a man after God's own heart. Saul was not. I mean, he could have been maybe, but I don't know. The thing is, though, Saul was chosen by God. Samuel knew this. It was hard for Samuel. He cried to God all night. It was not easy. He was the one that anointed him. And he knew that Saul had a transformation. What happened, I don't know. And why did God do it? I mean, well, okay, I'm getting to that. I'm getting ahead of myself. Just hold on a minute. 1 Samuel chapter 15. Then Samuel went to Ramah, and Saul went up to his house to Gibeath Shaul. Samuel came no more to see Saul until the day of his death, for Samuel mourned for Saul. And Yahweh grieved that he had made Saul king over Israel. Yahweh said to Samuel, how long will you mourn for Saul, since I have rejected him from being king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and go. I will send you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided a king for myself among his sons. So the thing I noticed in this next section was how quickly the transition is made in the Bible of moving away from Saul and now showing David. Saul gets worse and worse. As you go on, he just gets worse and worse. And David just gets better and better. So I still wonder about God choosing Saul. Obviously now at this time, Saul is a great example. He's a lesson of how not to do things. We can see by his how he did things, that's not the way to do them. But I believe that Saul was given a chance by God. Saul could have done better. My sense as I read was that the pressure and the elevation of the position kind of wrecked him. He was so wowed by the whole thing of being this, king guy that it kind of screwed him up. He seemed to always want to show off. He made that, a monument to himself. He always wanted to be admired or respected by the people. I'm not so sure he actually believed in himself. I think it might have been a low self-esteem issue and he's overcompensating, but that's just me. I'm just guessing. That's just my take on him. And in that, he seems to have lost what he was supposed to be. So, he seems to have lost his humility, that's for sure. Back in chapter 13, where we were in 15 just now, but we're going back to 13. Before the problem with the Amalekites, Saul is freaking out about the situation with the Philistines. The people are scattering. Samuel is not there. Saul is freaking out. So his solution is to offer sacrifices on an altar in order to entreat God. Well, yeah, but that's not his job. That's the Levite's job. There's probably more to it that I don't understand. But anyway, when Samuel comes, Saul is in trouble. And Samuel said to Saul in 13:13, "You have done foolishly. You have not kept the mitzvah of Yahweh your God, which he commanded you. For now Yahweh would have established your kingdom on Israel forever. But now your kingdom will not continue. Yahweh has sought for himself a man after his own heart. And Yahweh has appointed him to be a prince over his people." God already knows it's David. "Because you have not kept that which Yahweh commanded you." So this is already back in chapter 13. And the final straw comes with Amalek a couple chapters later. So I have to wrap this up now. But the thing is, like I said, God moves on immediately from Saul to David. When Samuel gets to Bethlehem, he's getting the family of Jesse, Yishai, the Bethlehemite, and he wants to anoint the oldest son, the first guy. He says, yeah, he looks pretty good to me. As soon as he gets there, but God reminds him, right, in verse 6 of 16, "And it was when they came that he, Samuel, looked at Eliab and said, 'Surely the anointed of Yahweh is before him.' But Yahweh said to Samuel, 'Do not look on his face or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For I do not see as a man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but Yahweh looks at the heart.'" So God's young man David is finally found out there watching the sheep. They have to go get him. He's anointed, and the whole story goes on from there. Just remember that the problem with Saul was his disobedience. He was not obeying from the heart the things he was supposed to do. He was lacking in humility, I believe. This is the difference, because David did obey. David did have humility, except when he didn't. Well, he did have humility, but sometimes he would mess up. Actually, a lot. But even then, when he messed up, he made plenty of mistakes, he admitted to his faults. He owned them. He confessed them. And he moved on in better ways. Like the thing with the cart. And he messed up with the cart, trying to move the ark. But when he tried to do it again the next time, he did it right. He had Levites, they had staves in the ark, just the way they're supposed to do it. And it was with the blessing of God he did that. David remains a tremendous role model for us today. A lot of us look to him as a role model. I certainly do. I look forward to the time in the future where I may be able to meet David some fine day. But it's the heart qualities that make David so superior to Saul. So just remember Proverbs 4:23. "Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life." Shabbat Shalom.